You walked into the party like you.
Did you know that some of the most mesmerizing voices of the 1970s still have the power to send chills down your spine today? From the softest whisper to the most commanding beltings, the women of this era truly redefined what it meant to engage an audience. They didn't just sing, they hypnotized. Are you ready to be swept away by some of the most unforgettable female voices in music history? Join us in this video as we take a look at the most hypnotic female voices of the 1970s. Number 10. Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand is a name that echoes throughout the history of American music and entertainment. Her voice, widely regarded as one of the greatest in pop and musical theater, it's hypnotic, not just in its range, but in its expressive power and precision. What makes Barbra's voice so captivating is her ability to inhabit every song, whether she's belting out show-stopping ballads or crooning intimate pop tunes. When Streisand sings, you feel like you're hearing the very essence of a song's emotion. Streisand was a force to be reckoned with in the 1970s, as she dominated both Broadway and pop charts with songs like Evergreen, From a Star is Born, and The Way We Were. Her deep, rich tone coupled with her impeccable vocal control could send chills down your spine one moment and fill you with joy the next. With a voice that could reach the highest peak, Streisand managed to make her audience feel every ounce of joy, pain, or heartbreak, making her a true vocal chameleon. But it wasn't just her vocal prowess that made her mesmerizing. It was her undeniable charisma and the way she conveyed every emotion through her voice. Take People, for example, a simple song about the joy of being with others. Yet Streisand's performance turns it into an anthem of longing and yearning. Every line she sang was dripping with emotion, and that ability to take an ordinary song and transform it into something extraordinary was a hallmark of her career. Streisand wasn't just a vocalist, she was an icon. Her influence in the 1970s helped define not only the sound of that era, but also the future of pop and Broadway. Her performances were meticulously crafted, and her voice had the ability to carry through any style of music, be it pop, jazz, or musical theater. There's no question that Barbra Streisand's voice has remained a timeless treasure, one that continues to captivate new generations. Number 9. Donna Summer. When you think of Donna Summer, the first thing that comes to mind is disco, and for good reason. But to reduce Donna Summer to just another disco queen would be a mistake. Her voice was far too captivating, and her presence far too powerful to be simply categorized. Summer's rich, soulful voice could glide seamlessly through glittering disco beats, only to soar to a powerful, dramatic climax. There was something about her that turned every song into a cinematic experience. Summer's signature hit, Love to Love You Baby, was an impressive song. It was hypnotic in its rhythm, seductive in its delivery, and revolutionary in its sensuality. As she sensually whispered and moaned her way through the song, Summer captivated audiences with her deeply intimate style. This wasn't just a performance, it was a journey through a world of desire, passion, and intrigue. And the moment she hit those high notes, there was no turning back, you were hooked. But Summer wasn't just the queen of disco, she brought soul into the equation, especially on tracks like Glass Dance and Bad Girls. Whether she was commanding the dance floor or wrapping her voice around a poignant love song, Donna Summer's ability to connect with her audience was undeniable. There was no escaping the beauty of her voice. It was rich, powerful, and irresistible. And she was the undisputed ruler of the dance floor. The 1970s were a defining decade for Donna Summer, as her voice became known with an era. But it wasn't just her ability to craft hit after hit that made her unforgettable. It was the emotional depth she brought to every note. She wasn't just singing for the crowd, she was singing into them. Whether you were dancing or daydreaming, Donna Summer's voice took you somewhere else. Somewhere magical. Number 8. Olivia Newton-John.
I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable.
When you think of Olivia Newton-John, the first thing that comes to mind is likely her timeless hit, Physical. But in the 1970s, it was her more mellow, soothing voice that really captured the hearts of millions. Olivia had a way of singing that made you feel like everything was calm and peaceful. a voice that radiated warmth and comfort. Whether she was singing a soft ballad or breezing through a country pop fusion track, Olivia's voice was like a soft breeze on a summer day, hypnotic in its tenderness. Her rise to fame began in the early 70s, and by the time I Honestly Love You hit the charts in 1974, Olivia had already made a name for herself with her pure, clear tone. But it wasn't just her sweet delivery that hooked fans, it was the way she brought sincerity and vulnerability to every song. The sincerity in her voice on tracks like If Not For You or Have You Never Been Mellow made you feel like she was speaking directly to you, sharing intimate thoughts and emotions. There was something about Olivia's sound that felt comforting, almost like a friend gently guiding you through a storm. Olivia's voice wasn't just soft, it was rich and powerful in its own way. The delicate yet strong quality of her tone allowed her to easily float between genres, from pop to country, without ever losing that signature warmth. She was able to convey a sense of innocence and joy in songs like Let Me Be There, but then switch gears and explore deeper emotional territory in hits like Please Mr. Please. It's this range that made her voice so captivating. There was always something new to discover in every note she sang. By the late 70s, Olivia became a household name, cementing herself as one of the most soothing and beloved voices of the decade. Her relatable quality and ability to make each song feel like a personal conversation with the listener made her an icon in the world of soft rock and pop. Even today, her voice continues to invoke the same feelings of nostalgia, peace, and comfort, just as it did all those years ago. Number 7. Carly Simon.
You walked into the party like you.
Carly Simon's voice is the perfect blend of vulnerability and strength, capturing listeners with her effortless ability to convey emotions through song. Her sultry, husky delivery makes every lyric feel intimate, as though Simon is singing just for you. In the 1970s, Simon became a mainstay of pop and singer-songwriter music, and her voice played a huge role in her success. Her mix of raw honesty and sophisticated charm was uniquely hypnotic, pulling audiences into her world with every breath. One of her biggest hits, You're So Vain, is a perfect example of how her voice captures the mystery and intrigue of a song. With that unmistakable opening line, you walked into the party like you were walking onto a yacht. Carly Simon invites us into a world of glamorous yet cutting-edge pop with a touch of cattiness and sarcasm. But what makes this song, and so many of her others, so special is how Simon's voice effortlessly flows between playfulness and intensity, making the listener feel as though they're being taken on an emotional roller coaster. But Simon wasn't just about sarcasm or seductive charm. Her ballads like Anticipation showcased her ability to convey deep longing and yearning, with her soft, vulnerable tone weaving through the lyrics as though she was speaking directly to the listener's soul. Whether she was serenading the listener with Mockingbird, her collaboration with James Taylor, or belting out Haven't Got Time for the Pain, Simon's voice always left a lasting impact. Her authenticity as a singer-songwriter was unmistakable. She wasn't just performing for the audience, she was giving them a glimpse into her heart. Carly Simon became one of the most captivating artists of the 70s because her voice made you feel everything she was singing. Her sound wasn't just about flashy techniques or grandeur. It was about raw emotion, simplicity, and genuine connection with her listeners. Every note felt personal, every word meaningful, and her ability to stir emotions with such ease is exactly what makes her voice so hypnotic. There's no denying that Carly Simon brought a new kind of magic to the 1970s with her intimate charm and emotional depth. Her voice filled hearts, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who had the pleasure of hearing them. But don't go anywhere just yet, because the next women in this video bring their own unforgettable vocal energy to the mix. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Number 6. Joni Mitchell.
Don't it always seem to go? You don't know what you've got to live.
Known not just for her voice, but for her deep poetic lyrics, Joni Mitchell's influence on the 1970s, and music in general, cannot be overstated. When Joni Mitchell sang, you felt as though you were being transported to another world, where every lyric was a piece of art, every note a brushstroke in a beautiful musical painting. Joni's voice was incredibly unique. Not only was it captivating in its clarity and warmth, but it also had an almost ethereal quality, like a breeze floating through the trees. Her vocal delivery was tender, yet at times it could rise with the strength of a storm. Songs like Both Sides Now, A Case of You, and Big Yellow Taxi showcased her ability to tell stories with the kind of emotional complexity that made her more than just a singer. She was a storyteller, a poet, and an artist. Her voice carried such deep emotion that it almost felt like she was reading from the pages of her soul. But what made Joni Mitchell's voice so hypnotic was how she could make you feel every word, every phrase. Whether it was her soaring high notes or the way her voice would soften into a delicate whisper, she had the power to make you hang on to every single syllable. Her voice had this mystical quality that made you feel like you were part of her world, and you couldn't help but be entranced by her intimate and personal delivery. Throughout the 1970s, Joni Mitchell's career flourished as she pushed the boundaries of folk, jazz, and pop music. With albums like Blue and Court and Spark, she became one of the defining voices of the decade. Her voice was hypnotic, not just because it sounded beautiful, but because it conveyed a truth that was raw and deeply human. Number 5. Aretha Franklin.
You treated me mean. Oh,
When you talk about hypnotic female voices, there's one name that simply cannot be left off this list: Aretha Franklin. Her voice was more than just powerful. It was an unstoppable force that could reach the deepest corners of your soul. Aretha didn't just sing songs, she transformed them into something that could lift you up, make you reflect, or leave you breathless in awe. Every note she sang came with an intensity that made you sit up and pay attention. Aretha's career took off in the late 60s, but it was in the 1970s that her voice truly became legendary. She didn't just break charts, she broke barriers, establishing herself as a monumental figure in the world of soul, gospel, and R&B. Tracks like Rocksteady and Spanish Harlem showcased her unmatched vocal range. At the same time, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman and Until You Come Back to Me demonstrated her ability to convey raw emotion, like no one else could. But what made Aretha's voice so hypnotic wasn't just her ability to hit the high notes or belt with power. It was her ability to own every note. She wasn't just singing, she was living the lyrics. When Aretha sang, she pulled from a deep, soulful place, allowing every word to resonate with authenticity and passion. It wasn't just her vocal control, it was her incredible range. It was her emotional command that made her so magnetic. Her voice was a roller coaster of emotions, and once you strapped in, there was no turning back. Her contributions to music in the 1970s solidified her as a force to be reckoned with, but it was her ability to transform a song that made her voice genuinely hypnotic. Whether she was singing an empowering anthem like Think or a heartfelt ballad like Ain't No Way, Aretha's voice was captivating in a way that went beyond just technical skill. It reached deep into your heart and made you feel every single word. Aretha Franklin didn't just sing soul music, she defined it. Her voice is unmatched in its ability to convey both power and vulnerability. And it's no surprise that she remains one of the most influential vocalists of all time. If there's one artist who can claim the title of Queen of Soul, it's Aretha Franklin, and her hypnotic voice still reigns supreme. And don't think we're done just yet. We still got more iconic voices on the way that will keep you hooked. Number 4. Linda Ronstadt.
I'm going back someday. Come what may to Blue Bayou.
When it comes to versatility, few can match the range and diversity of Linda Ronstadt. Born in Arizona and armed with an undeniable powerhouse voice, Ronstadt became the voice of several genres, from rock and pop to country and Latin. But it wasn't just her ability to tackle every style of music that made her hypnotic. It was the emotion and soul she poured into her performance. From the moment Linda's voice took flight, it was clear she was a force to be reckoned with. Whether she was belting out a powerful rock anthem like Blue Bayou or weaving through the mellow vibes of Desperado, Ronstadt's ability to adapt and master any genre was nothing short of captivating. Her voice had a unique mix of strength and tenderness. It was at once bold and delicate, evoking a sense of yearning and passion that no one could ignore. Songs like You're No Good and When Will I Be Loved became anthems for women everywhere, empowering them with their strength, while tracks like Long, Long Time showcased the vulnerability that Ronstadt could channel so effortlessly. In the 70s, Linda Ronstadt became the queen of crossover, with her ability to transcend genres and audiences. Her influence was undeniable. This was a woman who not only captured the hearts of America, but also made waves internationally. Her voice was so distinctive that you couldn't help but be pulled into whatever world she was crafting with each song. Whether she was singing with her band, on her own, or collaborating with artists like Jackson Browne or Neil Young, Linda's vocals created an instant connection. She became the gold standard for emotive performance. Her hypnotic voice and ability to mold her vocal style to any genre gave her a unique place in music history. It's no wonder that she became one of the most influential and successful female artists of the 1970s and beyond. From rock to pop to country, she dominated it all, leaving us with a body of work that continues to make hearts race to this very day. Number 3. Ann Wilson. If there's one voice in rock music that stands out for its sheer power, depth, and undeniable presence, it's Ann Wilson's. As the lead singer of Heart, Ann's voice wasn't just one you heard, it was one you felt deep in your bones. Whether she was belting out the massive hits Barracuda or Crazy on You, Ann Wilson's voice was the kind that could fill up a stadium, make the hair on your neck stand up, and hypnotize every listener in the crowd. Ann's vocals were full of fierce emotion and unmatched control. In songs like Alone, her voice would start soft, almost like she was whispering a secret, only to explode into a powerful wall of sound that left you breathless. It wasn't just the raw strength of her voice, it was her ability to blend vulnerability and power in a way that no one else could. One moment she could sound like she was pouring her heart out, and the next, she was commanding the room like a true rock queen. Her influence in the 70s is undeniable, and the power and intensity of her voice helped solidify Heart as one of the most iconic rock bands of the era. It wasn't just about hitting the high notes. Ann's voice had an unmatched gravelly richness that set her apart from other singers of the time. Her hypnotic tone could melt you with its softness, or shake you to your core with its force. This versatility made her one of the most important female voices in rock music history. And let's not forget the pure, raw energy she brought to the stage. Ann Wilson didn't just sing a song, she embodied it, with each note infused with passion and an emotional depth that made the lyrics feel as though they came straight from her soul. She didn't need to scream to capture your attention. Her voice demanded it, leaving a lasting impression every time. Number 2. Karen Carpenter.
Why do birds suddenly appear?
When you think of a voice that feels like a warm embrace, Karen Carpenter is the first name that comes to mind. Born into the spotlight as part of the iconic duo The Carpenters, Karen's voice had a rare, ethereal quality, one that could be as soft as silk, yet full of emotion and depth. Her voice was pure, almost haunting in its simplicity. It's no wonder songs like Close to You and We've Only Just Begun still resonate deeply today. What made Karen so captivating was how effortlessly her voice glided from note to note, carrying such emotional weight that listeners couldn't help but be drawn in. The way she articulated each word in her songs was as if she were sharing a personal secret, making her performance feel incredibly intimate and real. But Karen's vocal charm wasn't just in her smooth delivery, it was also in the vulnerability she conveyed. Tracks like Rainy Days and Mondays echo her ability to take something so simple, like a rainy day, and transform it into something profound. Her voice could paint a picture, and in doing so, it made her one of the most captivating and enduring voices in pop music. Sadly, Karen's health struggles overshadowed much of her later career, but there's no denying her impact. Even now, decades later, after her tragic passing, her voice continues to captivate, carrying with it a sense of timelessness that few voices in history have ever matched. Number 1. Stevie Nicks. And finally, we've come to one of the most elevated and hypnotic voices of all time, Stevie Nicks. When you think of Stevie Nicks, you think of magic. Not the kind you can learn from a spell book, but the kind that seeps into your soul and changes you forever. Known for her work with Fleetwood Mac and her iconic solo career, Stevie Nicks is the perfect description of the mystical side of rock. Her voice? Oh, it's hypnotic in the most enchanting way, with a signature raspy quality. She could weave stories with each song, drawing you into a world of witches, love, and heartbreak. Her presence was mesmerizing, not just because of her voice, but because of the mystery she carried with her. Songs like Landslide and Rhiannon felt like journeys, where her voice guided listeners through a fog of emotions, and in the process, made them feel as though they were sharing her world. It wasn't just her vocal style that made Stevie unforgettable, it was her energy. She was a pioneer, carving out a unique space for herself in rock music, and women everywhere took notice. Who could forget her iconic performances with Fleetwood Mac, where she would swirl on stage in flowing gowns, her voice weaving through the band's sound like a force of nature. Every note felt purposeful, and every breath she took added to the enchantment. Stevie Nicks wasn't just a voice in the 1970s, she was the voice of a generation, capturing the essence of what it meant to be free, to be emotional, and to be utterly captivating. There was and still is something almost mystical about her vocal delivery, something that transcends time and pulls listeners into her world every single time they hit play. We've seen how the 1970s were home to some of the most iconic female voices in music history. From rock to folk to pop, these women define not just the sounds of the decade, but the emotions, stories, and experiences that continue to resonate today. So, which of these hypnotic voices still gives you chills to this day? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our videos. See you in the next one.